Now, let's get reaction from the Pan-South African Language Board. I want to discuss its view on the issue of indigenous languages that are still neglected in our institutions of higher learning. Are we any closer into realizing a reality in which these indigenous languages can be used as languages of learning and teaching? Let's speak now from the Pan-South African Language Board, the Executive Head of Languages, Julius Dantile. Julius, good evening. Thank you very much for your time, sir, especially on the evening of our Heritage Day, which is a national public holiday. Indigenous languages, I mean, in that bite I just played there of Advocate Andre Gom, the Human Rights Commissioner, responding to the Constitutional Court decision regarding the matter at Unisa in terms of phasing out of Afrikaans, saying, no, you can't do that. Actually, constitutionally, we have to be promoting our indigenous languages, and Afrikaans is one such language. How are we doing in terms of that? I mean, languages are an important part of our heritage, of who we are.
Good evening to you, Mr. Moyane, and the viewers of eNCA. We are not doing very well in terms of using the languages. Universities, even schools, at basic education, they abruptly change and push students whose languages are indigenous African languages to use English. And that has got a number of effects. So we are not doing very well at all in terms of promoting, and not just promoting, but using our languages. What we have to always understand is that a language is developed and is promoted when it is being used. If you don't use the language in any genre, be it a higher register, like academics, like your science, your commerce, you are not going to be able to develop that language. It has to be used in courts. It has to be utilized in judgments. There are some encouraging judgments that are coming through in two languages, English or Afrikaans or English or isiXhosa, that I've observed over the years. That is encouraging because it creates what is called corpus, the language that is being used in those particular higher genres. So we are not doing very well in other sectors, but particularly in the higher education sector, now, as it has been said here.
Yeah, when I spoke to Advocate Andre Gam, he said that after this Constitutional Court ruling about Afrikaans, the use of Afrikaans as a teaching medium at Unisa. Unisa has been given until 2023 to reinstate it. They want to engage with the Department of Higher Education about the use of indigenous languages at our institutions of higher learnings. What, in your view, should happen to enable that reality?
What needs to happen, it's simple, as I said. Use the languages. As I said, you cannot grow the languages without using them. You cannot develop them without using them. Use them as they are now, because any language is capable of being a scientific language. Any language is capable of being an academic language. So in order for you to make a language an academic language, you have to use it. So this phenomenon of saying, let's develop them first, then we use, it doesn't work. Let's use the language as they are. And then once we use, we'll pick up all the nuances that has to be corrected, that has to be put up so that the language then is brought up. Remember, people are using this language already. So the fact is that let's the academia in South Africa use the languages, and some of them in some universities, they use these languages in their lecture rooms because students cannot live without them in those lecture halls.
Should we start the usage?
Reality,
Yeah, as a foundation, should we start the using of the languages, primary school into high school, to build a proper foundation towards the institutions of higher learning?
Remember, the policy of the basic education says that students, learners at that level, at the foundation phase, learn in their mother tongue and then use English as an additional language. On the basis of that, what we do once the learners get at around grade 4, grade 3, what our system is doing, it pushes them then to do to use English mostly, and then remain with their mother tongue as a language other than being used in other subjects. So what needs to be done in South Africa is what is being done in the Eastern Cape currently, where they have over time proven that these learners can learn in isiXhosa and isiSotho from grade 1 up to grade 12. The Eastern Cape has made up tests for these things, and they are happening. And learners, it has been proven beyond reasonable doubt in this country, in various platforms, that when a learner is using his or her own mother tongue, their academic and cognitive outputs are much more better than when they are using a second language. Remember, English becomes a second language to them, which is becoming problematic because they cannot think properly. Their cognitive levels in English are not up to scratch. So you need mother tongue, that the kids, when they are at home, they are able to communicate knowledge, take some of the things that they are taught at school to say, how can we experiment with these things at home? Then that is an education. At the current system we have, our education, learners get at the gate, they get whatever they get in class, they get out of the class. When they get out of the gate of the school, they forget about what was taught in school. So it's not practical. It's not an education system that is empowering our young people. It is making them to be emphasizing the rote learning. They are memorizing stuff instead of thinking about how do we experiment with them. And those are the consequences of not using the languages. So what I'm trying to say, the policy is already existing that these languages should be used up to a university level. Those policies are there. The issue is that we are not implementing them.
Okay,
Government is not implementing them.
Yeah, that's the issue. And you've just touched on that point, because that's leading to my last question to you as we conclude, Mr. Dantile.
Yes.
The government is not implementing. The policies are there. The Constitution enables all of that, and the policies are there, but government is not implementing. The Human Rights Commission says they're going to be engaging with the Department of Higher Education. You sit there as the executive head of languages on the Pan-South African Language Board. Does the board have, you have an interest rather, in making sure that we use our indigenous languages, our home languages? Are you going to be pushing for that as well, like the Human Rights Commission with the Department of Higher Education, to make sure that we begin to widely use our languages?
Definitely so, Mr. Moyane. We are pushing, and PenSAP has been pushing for the use of these languages in every genre. In higher registers. We always encourage universities. We work with them where possible to say, if they have to develop terminology, we work with the universities to develop that terminology. As PenSAD, we have dictionary units that are placed at universities as research units for the development of these languages. And there are dictionaries that exist out there in each and every language, official language in South Africa. We have those dictionaries. They have been produced. Some of them are multilingual, some of them are bilingual, some of them are monolingual. So the materials are there. The issue that the department, both the Department of Higher Education and Basic Education, is to implement the policies. I think what is being emphasized by this particular constitutional judgment here is a constitutional court judgment, is the emphasis on the use of these languages. And we have also to deal with the notion of the numbers. We can't put the numbers first without using the languages, because everyone in this country, in the world, wants to have a socio-economic mobility. Then how do we create that environment for our languages to create a socio-economic ability for them to be utilized in every space and everywhere? There are simple methods that can be utilized in terms of this. And some of the universities have experimented with them, and they have been successful. And I won't name them here, but they're out there. They are doing the work, but the work is not as much as it's supposed to be.
There's a need to scale up these efforts that you have mentioned. You've mentioned the Eastern Cape as one such province at the basic education level, and at the higher institution level, there's cooperation with your board as well. So I guess it's the issue of implement, and scale up, and over time we should be able to get to more optimal usage of our indigenous languages in the institutions of higher learning, including universities. Thank you very much, Mr. Julius Dantile. Ndiyabulela Mhlekazi. He's, of course, the executive head of languages at the Pan South African Language Board.